Hello, boys and girls and babes. Welcome back to the Jenaya Talks Caps podcast. As always, thank you all so much for tuning in today. And we would like to invite you, if you haven't already done so, to please go ahead and subscribe to our podcast if you're enjoying your time here. We have a new episode for you every single week, rain or shine, win or loss, massive season-saving third period comeback, or last-minute Anthony Mantha giveaway. No matter the circumstances, like I said, rain or shine, we will be here to do an episode for you guys every single week. We love having you guys here. And unfortunately, yes, this week we do have to talk about the elephant in the room, if you will. That elephant, of course, being one of, there's really no way of sugarcoating it, one of the worst turnovers ever, like one of the worst turnovers that you're ever going to see in professional hockey. These guys who actually get paid millions of dollars, right? Not to do just that, just what Anthony Mantha did there on Saturday night, which was essentially cost the Caps the hockey game, and quite frankly, a shot at the playoffs as well, with what was, as I said, one of the worst turnovers you're ever going to see in professional hockey, probably in professional sports in general. This was, quite honestly, like it was some Pee-wee House League bullshit, and it came at the worst possible time of the game, the worst possible point in the season for the Washington Capitals. Now, I'm not going to pretend as if I've never made a turnover like that back in my days of playing forward, before I was a goalie. I did, I have made turnovers like that once or twice, but the difference is I was 5 years old. It was mite level hockey. It was all for fun. And my parents were taking me for Timbits after the game, regardless, whether we won or lost. So it really didn't matter to me. I wasn't getting paid $6 million a season not to do it. It was just for fun. This is professional hockey now for Anthony Mantha. So, my experiences, like I said, mite level Timbit hockey playing forward. You can decide for yourselves if that is comparable or not. Of course, I, turned into a goalie after that. That's basically my experience playing forward. 5 years old, Timbits. Like I said, you can decide for yourselves if that is comparable or not. But I don't think that the circumstances of my turnovers were as egregious as this. So if you don't know what I'm talking about because you missed the game, and therefore you missed the Mantha turnover, first of all, congratulations. Consider yourself lucky. Really, your blood pressure thanks you. I can already feel mine spiking just now, just having to relive this nightmare one more time before we bury it forever in the trash where it belongs, which, coincidentally is probably exactly where Anthony Mantha's contract belongs as well, in the trash, right? Does anybody have a shredder they're not using? Can we just, take a mulligan on that one? I know the Caps aren't the ones who actually signed him to the contract, but it's ours now, and it's going to be hard to get rid of, which is, hopefully they can find a way to do that during this off season upcoming here. So an off season that is going to come a lot earlier than many of us, most of us, all of us wanted it to, in large part thanks to this turnover. Like the circumstances of this game. So like I said, let's walk through what happened. So like I said, if you missed it, what happened was essentially this. So the Caps were down 3-0 in the third period in Pittsburgh, in what was, like I just mentioned, a massive, massive game for the Caps' playoff hopes. So the circumstances of this game, like I said, just to walk you guys through it. So should the Caps have won the game in regulation, they would have been just 2 points back of the Pittsburgh Penguins for one of the Eastern Conference's 2 wildcard spots. A scenario that seems pretty unbelievable when you think about all of the injuries that the Caps have suffered this season. The fact that they were even within striking distance was in and of itself impressive on its own. But they had a real chance here with a win in Pittsburgh at getting back into the playoffs for a 9th consecutive season. Which is, by the way, the second longest active streak in the NHL and actually in professional sports as a whole. The 4 major North American professional sports anyway. So, to say, if it feels like everybody's getting really wound up about this turnover, it's because the circumstances of this game were so huge, so huge. This had major playoff implications, this game, and this turnover by Anthony Mantha. So, like, to say that this game was a big game would have been just a complete understatement, right? Like, this was the often talked about quote unquote 4-point game, against the team in your own division who you are directly chasing for a playoff spot. And as I said, win, and the Caps would have been just 2 points behind the Penguins. Lose in regulation, however, and they would sit 6 points back instead, which is likely too steep of a hill to climb, with just 8 games remaining after the one in Pittsburgh. So, huge game. It cannot be overstated. So like I said, the Caps find themselves down 3-0 in the third period. And quite honestly, like, they really didn't deserve to be down 3-0. They were playing pretty well, and definitely they were playing better than Pittsburgh. The Caps, they came out flying to start the game. I think they had like 9 of the first 10 shots in the game, something like that. But you know how it goes. We're in Pittsburgh, and so the refs have to get involved, right? They have to make their presence known and felt. So after the Caps completely dominate the first 5 minutes or so of this game, they had the Penguins running all over the place like chickens with their heads cut off. And so the referees, they wanted to see to it that momentum got stopped in its tracks. So here comes, predictably, the back-to-back power plays for the Pens, essentially letting them touch the puck for the first time in the game. So they didn't score on either of those power plays, thankfully, as the Caps' 6th-ranked penalty kill in the league took care of business yet again, something that it has been doing with great frequency and efficiency lately. I think they said the Caps had killed off, I believe it was 18 of the last 20 opposition power plays, something like that, coming into this game. So that's really good. And the penalty kill certainly has, been a bright spot this season for sure. But unfortunately, even though the Penguins did not score on their power plays, it did have the effect that I'm sure that the referees were desiring, which was that it completely killed off all of the momentum that the Caps had generated early in the game at 5-on-5, after coming out, like I said, like basically like a house on fire in the first period of their biggest game of the season. So it was truly a great start by the Caps, kiboshed by the officiating once again. A tale as old as time, particularly when we were playing against the Pittsburgh Penguins. So we get to the first intermission, and it is still 0-0, which could probably be considered a win for the Caps, given how the first period ended up playing out. But then the second period starts, and the Caps find their legs again. And they are all over the Penguins once again, just like in the start of the game before all of the power plays. So the Caps, they're all over them, skating circles around them, creating numerous scoring chances for themselves. And so naturally, just as you've probably already guessed by now, if you have ever watched a Capitals-Penguins game, naturally the Penguins somehow get a couple of shots completely against the flow of the play. And of course, they score on both of them, because that is just what happens if you're a Caps fan watching your team play against the Penguins. Again, a tale as old as time. So I believe it was literally the Penguins' first 2 shots of the period as well. And we find ourselves down 2-0. What a time to be alive. So that would normally be the point at which I would have the urge to break my television, but I don't know, like on this night, I just had a good feeling like we were going to come back. The Caps were playing too well not to come back. But then, early in the third period, and with the Penguins on another power play, they would score a power play goal, finally, to make it 3-0. And at that point, probably even the most optimistic Caps fans would have thought that this game was over, that the season was essentially over. But not so fast. The Caps, well, 19 out of 20 of the guys who were dressed anyway, they were not ready to go home yet. Not on this night and not on the season. So Tom Wilson, he would get things started for the Caps, scoring off of a behind-the-net pass from Evgeny Kuznetsov after Wilson outmuscled the Pens defenders in front of their own net, winning that precious real estate, and in the process winning the chance to put the puck into the back of the net, which he did promptly. So then Captain Alex Ovechkin really put the comeback into motion with his 42nd goal of the season, the 822nd goal of his NHL career. It came after Dylan Strome helped the Caps to win the faceoff in the Penguins' end, just as a rare Caps power play was just beginning. I think it was like 4 seconds into the power play that the Ovechkin shot hit the back of the net. So Strome, he helps to win the faceoff, and then he sends the puck back to John Carlson, which is obviously a good choice. And Carlson subsequently sent it over to Ovechkin, also a very good choice. And you know how the rest of that story goes. Hammer time for Alex Ovechkin straight into the back of the net. And upon replay, he really blew it right through the goaltender. As Casey DeSmith was expecting the shot, he was ready and in position for it. But as we all know, when Ovi is the one shooting it, that rarely helps you if you're the goaltender. So 3-2 on the scoreboard, and now the game was really on. And by the way, just a quick note here on that goal. The goal extended Alex Ovechkin's point streak to 7 games, during which he has scored 6 goals and 11 points. Not bad for a guy who's basically playing on one leg. We know he's been playing injured, and he continues to play injured. He had to miss another practice again on Monday, another maintenance day as they're calling it. But he continues to be by far the most productive player on the ice most nights for either team. So just truly, truly incredible stuff from the 37-year-old. But we're used to that, but we shouldn't take it for granted though, right? That's why I bring it up. So, and Dylan Strome, with the assist on Ovi's goal, he also extends his own point streak, and actually overall, Strome has points in 10 of his last 11 games with 17 points total over those 11 games. He's been held scoreless just once in the last month, and he's been racking up multi-point games like a Vander Kane racks up gambling debt, which is to say very frequently, very quickly. And so jump to just over 2 minutes left in the game. And Dylan Strome would get his second point of the night. Told you, he's loving those multi-point games right now. So he would get his second point of the night, this time scoring the goal himself to tie the game for the Caps. It was a truly unbelievable comeback. Like, this was the type of comeback that can propel you for sure to a winning streak, propel you to a trip to the playoffs, etc. But Anthony Mantha exists, and herein lies the problem. Unfortunately, he was out there existing. Like I said, that's basically all he does these days, is just exist out on the ice. He doesn't really do much. So he was out there existing on the ice with just over a minute left in this game. And like I said, herein lies the problem. So the tied game, right, it lasts for all of about 90 seconds. As Peter Laviolette and his coaching staff inexplicably let Mantha out of his cage on the bench with less than 2 minutes to go in a 3-3 game, a huge game that the Caps absolutely had to have if they still had aspirations, realistic aspirations anyway, of making the playoffs this season. I cannot explain, fathom, or justify this coaching decision, and so I'm not even going to try. It's just... Anyways, we'll get to the coaching side of this in just a second here, because first and foremost, we do have to talk about the guy who made the turnover. So, folks, I'm just going to say this. First of all, like I said, if you missed the game for whatever reason, please, if you can stomach it, go watch the replay of this turnover by Mantha, and then we'll talk about it. Go ahead, pause the podcast. I'll wait. We'll still be here. Go watch this replay and then come back to us, because this is a turnover that you have to see it in order to believe it. It was really that bad. I'm not kidding you. Go watch it, please. Mantha, he picks up the puck in the Capitals' defensive zone. Everything's fine. Everything looks fine. There's nobody around him. Like, he had plenty of time to do whatever he wanted with the puck, as there was absolutely nobody on him. The Penguins players were going off for a line change. No one pressuring him at all. No one even within like 30 or 40 feet of him. And because the Penguins players were going off for a line change, the Capitals players, they made their way over to the bench once it was safe, or so they thought, to get a line change for themselves as well, as they had just been stuck in their own defensive end for almost a full minute after Mantha. Yes, the same Mantha had fumbled with and turned over the puck a few more times in his own D zone too, keeping his teammates stuck in their own zone for an extended shift. So the Caps defenders were gassed. They needed a line change. They go for that line change. And again, I want to make it absolutely clear that this was absolutely not on the guys who went for the line change, as it was perfectly reasonably safe to do so. And they had waited until it was perfectly safe to do so. You would fully reasonably expect that your teammate in Mantha, a veteran player who makes $6 million per season, would be able to make the very simple, safe play through the neutral zone with absolutely nobody on him. Nobody on him. Instead, what Mantha decided to do was to skate the puck straight into an oncoming Evgeny Malkin, because that seems like a good idea, and then to try to dangle around Malkin in the neutral zone with the Caps making a line change and with absolutely no backup behind him, no safety net. And well, the rest is history, isn't it? Certainly this 2022-2023 Caps season is history after Mantha basically handed the wildcard spot over to the Penguins on a silver frickin' platter with that turnover. And babes, I truly do not know what could have possessed Mantha, who, has really had no hands to speak of that I've seen, anyway, the entire time that he's been here, which to me feels like a never-ending eternity at this point. Trading this guy can't come soon enough. But seriously, he's consistently shown off the hands of a no-talent plug like a Ryan Reeves. So what on earth possesses someone like that to try to make a dangle like that in neutral ice with no backup behind him, with 1 minute remaining in a tied game that you need to win in order to keep your playoff hopes realistically alive? Massive, massive, massive playoff implications. I can't fathom how stupid Mantha was there. I really can't. And I don't like saying this. I don't like bagging on one guy, but it's the Caps played so well, and he goes out there, he finally gets a shift, and he does this. I can't fathom it. He knew that he had no backup behind him. He saw the line change starting. He was originally right over by the Caps bench when he picked up the puck initially. So he fully saw with his two presumably fully functioning eyeballs that his teammates were headed over there to make the change. So what in that moment possesses a guy to be you know what? I think I'm going to try a little move here that I used to pull off during shinny out on the lake. What the fuck, man? What are you doing out there? What are you doing? Ugh, I have no words. Actually, you know what? I do have some words. And my words are that this guy's got the decision-making capabilities of me when I'm 4 Jaeger bombs deep. So that's not great, Bob. Not great at all. I don't know if he just wanted to get a head start on his packing for his upcoming move out of Washington, D.C. after he is inevitably and finally traded this offseason. Maybe he just wanted the extra time to get his house packed up, right? Instead of being in the playoffs. I don't know, man. I can't understand the decision-making process there, if there even was one, which it seems like there wasn't. So I have no idea what he's thinking out there. No one can justify that play, and I'm certainly not going to try, as I'm really not the guy's biggest fan, even on the best of days, at least not on the ice. I'm sure, for the record, that he is probably a perfectly decent person off of the ice, but right now, this is a hockey podcast. We're talking about what's happening on the ice, and nothing that has been happening on the ice has been good for Anthony Mantha. Not this season, not last season, not since he's been here. So, get rid of him. I mean, what else can you say? They have to trade this guy in the offseason. They need to free up not only that cap space. Like I said, he has a pretty sizable cap hit, but they need to free up that roster spot as well. He's out there, he's taking up ice time that can be going to one of the very promising young prospects that the Caps have down in Hershey right now. So he's got to go. So all of that being said, and certainly it needed to be said, but we do also have to address, like I alluded to earlier, the other elephant in the room, which is, why the fuck is Anthony Mantha out on the ice to begin with a minute left in a tied game? Why is that a thing that was even allowed to happen? This coaching staff, they're watching the same games that we've all been watching all season, right? So why is it that I, sitting in my underwear on my couch, could tell you before the turnover even happened that it was going to happen, or that at least there was a very good chance that it was going to happen. The minute that Anthony Mantha was let through that bench gate and out onto the ice, I could tell you that. I was literally sitting there. I said, why is this guy out on the ice? 5 seconds later, turnover, Evgeny Malkin scores. So why is it that I, 3 beers deep, can predict that outcome as if I'm fucking Nostradamus, and yet the coaching staff who have watched this guy play up close, closer than me for the past 2 years, they didn't seem to see a single fucking issue with having him out there on the ice at such a critical point in the game, critical point in the season. So I can't understand it. I can't justify it. All I can really say is, wow. Because it would seem to me that the guy who has been turning the puck over all season, like valet drivers turn over car keys, it would seem to me that that guy should be a pretty good candidate to stay stapled to the bench during a tied hockey game with the playoffs on the line. But what do I know? I'm not the coach. Just a regular human being with 2 eyeballs that happen to work. So anyways, Caps fans, that is going to be all for today. I do need to go do some yoga or meditate or something after all of this Anthony Mantha talk. Just feeling very unzen right now. So as always, I wanted to thank you all again so much for listening. Please don't forget to subscribe to our podcast if you haven't already. Leave us a review if you feel so inclined as well, if you like what you hear. And, if you don't like what you hear, well then keep that to yourself, please. Just kidding. But hey, send us your comments about this episode, about what we talked about, or just about the team in general. We always love to hear from you guys. Send us any questions that you might have that you might want answered during next week's show. Like I said, we always love to hear from you guys. Like, Caps fans are some of the most insightful in this league. I truly believe that we get great questions from you guys, like great questions. And we appreciate you guys so much. So send us any comments or questions that you may have. And until next time, babes, thank you again so much for being here. We will chat next week. And as always, let's go Caps.